I've got two Class A encounters for you tonight. First up on the show is Curtis, and Curtis is a corrections officer. But when he was a kid in West Virginia, he had a Class A encounter with a juvenile that could have went really bad, and he is very fortunate to be here to tell this story. Matter of fact, both my guests are fortunate to be here. And then after that, we're going to be talking to a gentleman from Alberta, Canada. And he was out in the middle of nowhere hiking and ran up on a pack of wolves, and he really believes these things would have taken him out if it was not for a Bigfoot creature that he saw right in the middle of that encounter. This is a really good episode. You do not want to miss it. But before I jump into any of that, I just want to say thanks for being here, for being part of the Mysteries Unknown tribe. I couldn't do this without you guys. I'm very appreciative of all the support. But let's jump right into these stories. Curtis, welcome to the show.
Hey, man, thanks for having me.
Man, I'm honored to have you here. I want to say right off the bat, thanks for your service, for everything you do for us. And I know this is a story you've been sitting on for a while, and I appreciate you coming forward with us. So why don't you take us back to West Virginia when you were a kid and just kind of walk us through this?
Okay, yeah. So my grandparents lived on top of a mountain, kind of out in the middle of nowhere, and near Beckley, West Virginia, and had very few neighbors. Only one neighbor within viewing distance of their house. And as a kid, I spent a lot of time out in the woods, by myself. Whether it was hunting or just exploring or just whatever, and building forts. And so one day in the summer, I don't know, I was probably around 10 years old, and there was an old road that ran down along the side of their property, and it was an old gas well logging road or something, and it was actually off of their property, but it was right beside of it. And people used to go down there years ago and would dump trash in this big wide spot down there. They'd throw stuff out. But that's where I was heading this day. I'd go down there and shoot my BB gun or my little 22 or whatever it was, because there's always old cans and stuff laying around to shoot at. Like I said, they're on top of this mountain. You go down behind their house, probably 200 yards, and then the top of this old logging road starts, and it starts down the mountain. And it's probably about, I'd say, close to half a mile from the top down to where this trash pile was, where I was going. And as I'm walking down, we'd had a lot of heavy rain that had washed the road out. And right before you get to this trash pile, it was really steep. And so I remember I was looking down at my feet, making sure where my footing was. And I got the feeling just like something was watching me. And that's when I raised up, and right behind where the pile of trash was, I saw this thing. It was had its head poked out looking around the tree, and I could see its left shoulder and its whole head, and its right hand was wrapped around the tree on the other side. At first I didn't know what I was looking at. And I was like, what is this? And we stared at each other for probably 15 seconds. And then it stepped out, and I could see its whole body. It looked to be about 6 foot tall with long, almost orange hair. And once again, we stared at each other for just, 10 more seconds. And this thing took a really aggressive looking stance. And I told myself, man, it's time to go. And so I turned and ran back up the mountain, and the whole time thinking this thing's right behind me, and it's about to get me. But I get back to my grandparents' house and turn around and look, and there's nothing there. But that was the only encounter I had. Now there's been times after that I've got that feeling in the woods, like something's watching, and I listen to that now. I don't stay around too long when I feel that. I get out of there. Now there was another time when I was around 20 years old, roughly early 20s maybe. I was early archery season. I was hunting on that property, and had went out one morning and had shot a deer probably about 9:30 in the morning, and I watched it go down probably 75 yards from my stand, and I decided I would sneak down and head back to the house and get a bite to eat and just give it time, and then come back. And the reason being because if it went 20 more yards from where it was at, it was straight off a mountain. I mean, it was straight up and down. I wasn't trying to drag nothing back up that, I wanted to make sure and give it some time. So I go back to the house and fix whatever to eat, and spend a little time there talking to my grandpa, and told him I'd got a deer and stuff. And probably an hour goes by, hour and 15 minutes, and I go back, and when I get to where I can see where it was, I don't see it. I'm like, well, that's weird. It must have, maybe it got up and ran off. And when I got over to it, you could see where it was laying, and you could see drag marks for about 20 yards, and then it was just gone. And that was one of those times where instantly I was like, I remembered a little bit. I was like, maybe it, well, maybe that's what it was. I don't know for sure, but uh, it could have. I don't know. It didn't just. I promise you didn't get up and walk off.
No, that when you have stuff like that happen, you start connecting the dots. It really makes you, question the world around you. But how far away was that from your initial sighting?
300 yards maybe. Yeah, it's pretty close.
Yeah, man, it definitely could have been the same creature. I think a lot of the times these things run in packs, and I think sometimes they go through an area and they're transit. But I think sometimes, man, they for whatever reason they tend to stay in a specific area. Why that is, I don't know. Going back to your initial encounter when you saw this thing, man, did you smell anything at all when you saw it?
No, I didn't. And it's been so long ago too. But no, I don't remember. Don't remember smelling anything. I do remember the face changing, right? Like it went from, like we say, Harry and the Hendersons, to just almost evil, man. It was, of course, you're a kid, so you can scare maybe a little easier. But I don't know. I'd be more scared if I saw it now than back then, probably. But I remember it almost went, and like I do think it was a juvenile, just the way it was. It wasn't huge, it was kind of, like I said, about 6 foot tall, but real kind of skinny, real long arms and stuff, and wasn't real filled out or anything. It didn't. But it went. We stared at each other for like I said, probably 15, 20 seconds, and it went from just like a blank look, almost scared itself or nervous, and then almost a smirk, and then just mean looking, man. And that's when I was like, all right, it's time to go.
I'd have done the same thing, man. And I think you're right. I think seeing something like that now would be more scary than when you were a kid because you don't know what these things are or what to do in that situation, man. But what other details do you remember? Did you see any details in his face or anything else that stood out to you?
His face it was more brownish gray, I would say, and didn't have a protruding nose. It didn't. It was very orangutan looking, actually, the one I saw at first. And it's like, and then when its face changed, it didn't look like the same face. I mean, it changed. It changed so much that it didn't even look the same. And I don't know how to explain that other than just man, it looked evil.
That's a good way to explain it. I think these things a lot of times are like people, man. You run into the wrong one and you're going to have a really, really bad day. So many sightings get sent to me where it's just a roadside crossing type sighting, or they see one and they take off or whatever. But man, every once in a while you'll get one like that where you could tell these things are not happy that you're there. I know when I had my encounter, I knew when this thing was looking at me, it was not happy to see me. Like I felt just, it wasn't a good situation. And so, a lot of times, man, I think that some of these things are connected to these missing 411 cases, man. What are your thoughts on that?
I've seen the map, and I think you've shown it a few times on your show. I mean, it. I think I agree with what you say. I'm sure not all of them are. People do wander off, but there can't be that many. In these parks and all these, like it has to be, whether it's Bigfoot or Dogman or whatever. Like it's got to be something to that.
Yeah, I think there's definitely more to that story than what they're letting on, and the fact that that it's kind of a big cover up. You try to get information and stuff, and they don't want to give it to you. And strange disappearances, it makes you wonder, especially if you had an encounter like that. And but man, with seeing this creature and all that stuff that you kind of brought back to you and stuff. And if you had the opportunity to see another one, would you want to?
Yeah. I think I would like to, depending on the circumstances, right? I don't want, like you said, I'd like to see maybe a road crossing, or hey, it's standing way over there. I don't want to walk up and be within 25, 30 yards of one again. But yeah, I wouldn't. And you've been talking about Dogman a lot more. Now that's one guy I don't have any desire to see. Hope I never see. Never. Yeah. And I believe they're real. I think there's enough stories that it's a real thing, but I don't want to see one.
No, I think that's a good answer. I'm like you, man. I wouldn't mind seeing Bigfoot again if it was, in a circumstance I could control. But I have zero desire to see a dog, man. I didn't even have that on my radar when I started this channel, and I got so many encounters sent to me that it's just, I get a lot of those for whatever reason. I seem to get a lot, and they're some of the strangest encounters. And I would never want to see one of these things, at night or anytime. I have zero desire. So I'm like you with that. But, kind of the $1 million question, and there's nobody knows. Like even my opinion kind of goes back and forth with this stuff. But man, what do you think? What do you think it is?
I think, I'm like you. I go back and forth. I think it could be a little bit of everything. I think there could be some that are flesh and blood. I don't know that they're all the same. I don't think they are. And it's like cloaking and stuff. I doubt that everyone has the ability to cloak. If they did, we wouldn't have as many sightings. I don't feel like. I've thought it for a while now about you were talking about the national parks and the missing 411s and stuff. I've often wondered, is it possible that the government knew these things were in these areas, and that's why they were like, "Hey, we're just going to nobody's building it. We're going to leave this place alone."
It makes a lot of sense. That would be a good way to cover these things up, and that's probably why they don't release a lot of information for these things when people go missing and they work the cases the way they do. And it's a lot of strangeness, man. And I just tell people all the time, like, there's just so much in God's universe we can't explain, and I walk away with way more questions than I do answers with this stuff. And my opinion on these things change all the time. I'm always like trying to sit and I look at everything through a biblical lens, so it's got to fit in that narrative for me. And I think that some of them are flesh and blood, maybe, and some of them are more than that. And I don't know, man. It's a strange world, but it's really cool to hear these encounters, man. I appreciate you coming forward and sharing that with my audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And as far as the biblical standpoint, wasn't I think it might have been on your show where they sent off the hair sample, and it was determined that the mother was Middle Eastern and the father was unknown.
Yeah, I think Harley from Bigfoot Reports and Data was talking about that. And yeah, so like it's got those two different mixes in there, and so it really makes you scratch your head. It's like I don't know, what do you do with some of this stuff, man? Because I get reports sent to me all the time of these things are doing some of the weirdest things, right? And then sometimes they're just act like flesh and blood creatures. I do think that Dogman is way more than that. I think that you can have questions about Bigfoot, but man, Dogman, I put that thing in a specific category, and I think that's completely different.
100% demonic, in my opinion. That's 100% demonic, just from the story and the just the stories just from this channel alone. From the telepathic stuff and the following the guy from several different states, and no wild dog's going to do that, right?
We'll get back to the show in just a second, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for liking and watching this video. Would you guys consider being a member? I got all kinds of cool things coming down the pipeline, lots of perks if you join and become members of this tribe. We're building a really cool community, so be a part of that, be a member. Let's just jump right back into the story.
I'd grown up in Toronto in the city, and all my life I'd wanted to go to the mountains, live in the mountains, become a mountain man, and that was just sort of a dream. Well, the opportunity arose, and I took a small amount of money, and off I went. I figure I'm going to spend some time in the mountains, and I'm going to wash off the city, shake the city away from my life, right? So off I go. And I bought up a bunch of camping gear and dried packages of food and stuff, enough to last me a while. And I planned on walking from Jasper to Banff, which is quite a ways. My plan was for 5 weeks of a walk. It was off season of tourist season, so there wasn't a lot of traffic. It was the beginning of May. So around about the second week in, I was somewhere near the beginning of the Columbia ice fields in Jasper. As I was strutting along, it was beginning to get chilly, and it was starting to come on dusk. So I decided that night that I was going to walk all night and camp in the morning when the sun came out and stay warm. Camp because Columbia ice fields, it was cold there. So anyway, I'm walking along, and it was just starting to get duskier and duskier, a little bit dimmer and dimmer. And I hear something. I hear some noises and brush rumbling. I turn around, and about, say, 30 feet, 30 to 40 feet away from me, behind me, there was about 10 wolves on the road, and they were milling around each other, walking around and looking at me, and all I could see are silhouettes and eyes shining. I was horrified. I was dead stopped in my tracks. I could not move. My legs wouldn't move. I was so scared. My body felt heat, uh, like probably went up to about 150 degrees. So anyway, I'm standing there, and there's a good, probably about 10 minutes or more goes by, and they're milling around each other, staring at me. And I don't know what the heck's going on. Everything's going through my mind. My mind's racing 1,000 miles an hour. Don't know what to do. And I'm just thinking I'm about to die. I'm about to get ripped apart. And then one of them let out a big yip, and bang, within 3 seconds, it seemed like they all took off into the bush, like right into the forest. And that kind of freaked me out. And I was stumped, and I was trying to move, and I couldn't. And I was fighting with myself. And as I started to back up a little bit, I could get my feet moving again. And then again, I hear a noise behind me, and I think they just circled me. And I spun around, probably a little too quick. I almost tripped. I remember that. And standing there, guaranteed not 15 feet away, was the biggest, most massive creature I've ever seen or even heard about. Didn't even hear about a Sasquatch at that time. I had no idea at all. And this thing stood there, stared at me probably 10, 15 seconds, let off a bit of a grunt, and then it turned and went up the bank at the side. And as it went up the bank, it used the tree at the top of the bank. The bank had to be 20 or 30 feet high, and it grabbed the bottom of that tree and swung its feet up the way a monkey would swing its feet up. Like I had everything going through my mind. Was that an elk? Did I get in between the wolves killing an elk, a deer? I never even seen an elk before, so I had no idea. Like I said, I was horrified, man. I was just terribly horrified. And now I was scared to go and walk past where this thing was. And I could barely shuffle. A good half an hour probably went by before I could start shuffling my feet again. And I could hear twigs snapping up on the bank. And I could hear, as I walked that night, I started to get more and more emotion. And I was crying at part of it. I mean, I was that scared. I was just horrified, thinking this is the end of my life. This is the end of my journey. My family will never know what happened. You know, my son, I was worried about everything. It was all going through my mind.
That's probably one of the scariest encounters I've heard, Steve. And, you know, because you're out there in the middle of nowhere, there's nobody around, and you could have, like you said, been a missing person and nobody would have known what happened to you.
All I could think about was who's gonna ever find out. And as I started walking, I could hear it. It followed me for probably 3 or 4 hours. I never stopped walking until I started seeing daylight. I was too scared to stop or sit or even sit and have a smoke somewhere or anything. I was just, and I know this thing followed me along for quite a ways. And during that whole time too, I had a couple of times I spoke to it. I yelled up, leave me alone, leave me alone. And like, I didn't know what to do. I was, you know, a kid out of the city, you know, I wasn't a kid, but I was horrified. I was horrified. Since then, I've had 2 other occasions, and probably more than that, actually. I've had lots and lots of tree knocks where I live, and a friend of mine and I, we go out just about every day to different locations. We spend sometimes 10 days sitting in one spot, sometimes 5. Sometimes we just go out and sit there at a certain location all night long. just to listen in the dark. It's becoming very intriguing for me now. I've watched millions of shows on it and everything, and I know for a fact that I was saved by a Sasquatch. And since then, only in about a year ago, I heard a similar story from somebody. I forget now where I even heard it, but there was a story of same thing, wolves and a Sasquatch saving the person.
That's incredible. It makes me wonder if it just happened to come on you when the wolves were there, or if it knew that the wolves were about to, attack you, and it stepped in and saved your life.
That's gone through my mind. It's gone through my mind a million times too. Like how that all came together, and like, was it there? Did it show up? Was it following the wolves? Were the wolves hunting it? Everything has gone through my mind, every aspect of it. One of the other things that happened was when the morning came around, I guess, well, middle of the daytime, I guess, there was a ranger whose area that was for him to drive up and down that highway. Anyway, he would stop every couple of days and talk with me. If he'd see me on the highway, he'd stop, pull over, and we'd talk for a bit. Well, I seen him that day, and I told him what happened. And he straight out said to me, Sasquatch. And at that time, I went, what? What's that? I mean, and when he said, the thing from that movie and whatnot, oh man, then it started. Then it got me thinking. Hey, think about this. I finished the rest of that walk. I spent another 3 or 4 weeks walking after that happened. Every single night, my ears were humongous, laying there listening to noises.
Man. Well, Steve, first off, man, I just want to say what an incredible life that must be to drop everything and live that lifestyle. I think a lot of people want that kind of lifestyle, but also too, man, the fact that you're still here, that's really incredible. And I'm glad you're still here to share that story. And you're probably one of the bravest people I know. The fact that you just kept walking, man, I probably would have been done, because man, that could have went really bad 2 different ways with the wolves or with Bigfoot. But it really does make you wonder if he was there trying to just save you, or like we said, like he either heard the wolves was hunting them, or they were hunting him, or who knows. But man, either way, you made it out. So that's really good. Some of the experiences you've had since then in the area that you live at, I know you said you had a couple more encounters. Why don't you talk about those for a second, if you want to?
We go out, like I was saying, my friend and I, we go out quite a bit. Minimum 4 times a week out to the forest. Just about a week ago, we were standing at a spot, and there was bang, 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 like 3 big knocks right in a row. Then the bush was crashing. We both looked at each other, looked towards the bush, and then back another ways, about 50 yards back in a different direction, the bush started crashing again. So again, we don't know, never saw nothing. I ran in there looking. Couldn't find any prints or anything, but left us bewildered as to what it might have been. Another time I was out with my buddy, and he goes, Steve, look up there. And I looked up, and all I saw was some red hair running into a bush, running in behind trees. And he said that he saw it, and that it was clearly a Sasquatch, a reddish colored Sasquatch. And I believe him. Like, I'm with the guy all the time. I know he doesn't lie.
Man, that's incredible. It sounds like you guys are having a lot of fun out there, man. I just would be careful, because, well, firsthand how things can go south.
We carry no weapons at all. We never carry a weapon.
I've talked to a lot of people, and they say that that Bigfoot knows what a weapon is, and that's why they don't carry. Is that why?
Well, I think Bigfoot at one particular time or another would have spotted hunters. And they would watch a hunter. If they were following an elk herd, for example, they'd see a hunter shoot one, kill it. And just by watching that, they know that whatever that guy has in his hand is the machine that kills. So whenever they, like when we go out we'll go out the logging roads quite a ways. We figure that they watch, and they have somebody on different locations. If a car's coming, they'll hear it, watch it, get eyes on it. If stops, they'll know where it stopped, and they'll pull away from that area until that's quiet again. Kind of keep an eye on things on the roads out there, and whenever there's a vehicle, because it's pretty quiet in the forest, actually.
Oh yeah, no, it's really quiet, and I think they're highly intelligent. I think that they know exactly our behavior, and they know how we act. I was listening to an encounter the other day with this lady. She was out hunting with her daughter, and I don't remember where it was at, but she was deer hunting. Bigfoot walked up on underneath her under the tree stand, and it saw her, and she said that it put out its hand like stop, stop, and she laid her gun down. And she said that the creature just turned around and walked off. And it makes you wonder what would have happened if she would not have reacted that way, because they obviously, let me know they're intelligent. They know that. But with all that being said, man, how has that encounter changed your life? Because that is a life-changing experience. To go from not knowing anything about Sasquatch to having an encounter like that, how did that change you?
Many ways. I never lost the interest in the woods, in the forest, in the mountains. I never lost the beauty of it, every part of it. It just calls to me. But there were times where I was afraid to go out, and I slowly. It took a while to get over that, actually, before I'd go out again, and especially at night or alone, right? And there's another time I was laying in a dinghy in the middle of a small little lake, just drifting around, watching the stars, and I hear a great big splash. I sat up real quick, and this log went floating past me. I was about 50 feet from shore. So something threw a log at me. You try figuring that out. You sit up, you see this thing float past you right away, and it's like, where did that come from? I can't figure it out. I can't put that one together.
There's a lot of things out there that we just can't explain. And I'm like you, the woods really call to me, and it's my safe place. It's where I go and I pray and I spend time out in the woods. It's something really special to me. But I know a lot of people that have had experiences that it ruins that for them. So I'm really glad you were able to get past that and to go out back and enjoy it and do things that you love to do. But what do you think? I'm really interested in your opinion. But what do you think Bigfoot is after having an encounter like that and it changing your life? What do you think it is?
I think it is a giant species of an ape, but way more intelligent, more humanized. Been around a long time. I believe that they have not necessarily special powers, but say a grizzly bear's sense of smell. They can eat what an ape would eat. They only eat leaves and stuff. Moose only eat grass. They're all muscle. They're humongous in muscle. All our biggest animals around only eat vegetation. So I think they're a cross between meat eater and vegetation. But I think they're, like I said, almost a split down the middle between man and monkey, but giant.
Well, I mean, that would answer a lot of the questions, and that, that's a good answer. It makes a lot of sense. There's a mystery behind it, and I don't think anybody ever really knows for sure, and nobody's an expert because we've not obviously, caught one, but it's really interesting, and I like to hear other people's opinions, and I'm glad that you're safe, man, and that things have worked out like they have. Going back to the encounter, there's a couple questions I wanted to ask you. Is some people talk about feeling, obviously you felt fear when you saw the wolves, but did you feel anything that was kind of odd other than the obvious feeling? And did you smell anything when you encountered it?
I don't recall smelling anything. I've often heard about the smells, but I don't recall smelling anything. And afterward, the fear died real quick. When I started to finally get moving, and even though I knew it was still following me, there was no fear there anymore. There was more curiosity now. It developed over about an hour or so into a curiosity. What is this thing? Is it going to come down again? Am I going to see it again? Should I stop and try to set up a tent? It I was confused, man.
I can see why you'd be confused, man. I would, I don't know what I'd done in that situation, but it makes me really think that obviously it wasn't after you. It makes me really honestly lean towards the fact that maybe it was saving you. I don't know. I mean, I don't know, but that's kind of odd.
Even if that wasn't the case, that's the way I want to take it, because I want to consider them to be my friend, right? If I do have an occasion out here right now, say where I come right in front of one, I'm hoping it's going to be a friendly encounter.
Guys, thanks for hanging out with me tonight. Both of those stories are really incredible to me, and I really do think that these guys are very fortunate to be here to share these encounters. Sometimes people do go missing, and I think some of those are related to Bigfoot. Not all of them, obviously, but there are some of these things that we just can't explain. There's so much in God's universe. I say that all the time, but it's true. There's so much in God's universe we can't explain. But I just want to take a second to let you guys know I really do appreciate all the support. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule to listen to these stories, not only for me, but for the people that are telling them. And I think it really helps them get some of this trauma off their chest. And hopefully we're making the public aware that these things are out there, and we're helping the people that have these encounters. But couldn't do any of that without you guys. So thanks for being here. Thanks for the support. And if you've got an encounter you would like to send me, you can always send it to me by email at mysteriesunknownpodcast@gmail.com. Guys, I'm going to say it. I can't get off here without doing it. Stay prayed up. We'll see you in the next episode.
You'll never make it back home. You might have lost your way today. You might have lost hope, and that's all right. You might have lost faith. That's all right. You might even think that you have lost Jesus, and that's all right, because Jesus didn't lose you. In John 10:28-29, it says, I give them eternal life, and they will never perish. It goes on to say, no one will snatch them out of my hand. My Father who has given them to me is greater than all, and no one is able to snatch them out of the Father's hand. So wherever you're at today in this moment, darkness is around you and you are lost. You have no direction and no sense of home. I promise you that Jesus sees you in this moment, and he will make a way. Put your hope in him, your trust in him, and faith in Jesus, because nobody can take you from him. And he sees you in this moment, and he loves you so much. Just come home. He's waiting for you today. We love you guys, but more importantly, he loves you. We'll see you in the next video. Peace.